Hey everyone, this is LaRue from FilmSnobbery, and I am here at a secret, not so secret, undisclosed location. And I'm here with some wonderful people. I'm here with Miss Lauren Schacher. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, nice to see you.
Hi, and I'm here with Emily Best of Seed and Spark.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? Everything good?
Yeah, great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk with you guys, and I'm going to address the camera real quick and say to everyone, we're going to be talking about a campaign called Fuck Yes. So if you don't like sexy stuff, go color.
Ooh. Which is no one.
There's no one who doesn't like sexy stuff.
Everyone likes sexy stuff. Yeah.
Their sexy stuff doesn't have to be the same.
No.
You don't have to all like the same sexy stuff.
You can like different sexy stuff.
But everyone likes sexy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone likes sexy stuff. Yeah. And I want to talk about, first, Lauren, let's talk a little bit about your involvement with this and what is this? Because this is season 2 you guys are doing right now,
We're
right?
currently crowdfunding for season 2.
What makes, first of all, tell everyone what Fuck Yes is about.
So Fuck Yes is a series of digital shorts about consent. We address sort of sexy situations. That's anything that's awkward or, well, everything's pretty much awkward when you talk about it in a real way, right? Like we never see sex addressed authentically in movies and television. So we wanted to do that, and we wanted to do it in an environment where we could really address consent and pleasure, specifically women's pleasure, which is also not addressed ever.
Yes.
Emily came to me with the idea of consent is sexy and creating a series around consent, I think last summer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we started talking about how we could do that, and
then we built a dream team.
The dream team.
From there, yeah.
And I've been seeing between the tweets and the Seed and Spark campaign itself and the perks and all that, you guys, ladies.
Yes. Women.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi there. Hey, girl. No, I don't know. Doesn't work. But you've really managed to capture, I think, not only interest, but I think that you're doing something that I think not a lot of people have done in the past. And how does the Fuck Yes season 2 expand upon season 1, or is it just kind of more of a continuation?
So, it's super interesting. I can't say that we had necessarily a central thesis beyond consent is necessary for sex not to be rape. Mm-hmm. Consent is not enough because, of course, consent can be coerced, right? And so when we think about consent is sexy, we really think about helping people understand how consent is actually a conversation, right? Helping people communicate about consent makes sexual experiences more intimate. It also inevitably has an awkward moment. But we didn't actually discover that sort of the through line of this was kind of about the beauty of the awkward moment until we got done with season 1. So we shot season 1 after each of us writing scripts, pulling them together, deciding which ones we were going to shoot. We cast them, we shot actually 5 episodes in one weekend. Everybody just pitching in their time. And then we released them in May, and much to our surprise, it exploded. They were Mashable picked it up, and then Huffington Post and Bustle and Refinery 29 and all these people basically saying, this is the sex ed you wish you had in high school. And we were like, oh, we're making sex ed. And really it was with an attempt to so you can talk about consent and you can say, hey, both people need to consent for a sex act to be not rape. And everybody goes, yeah, I get it. That doesn't sound very sexy, right? Right. Do you want to do this? Yes, I want to do this. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Because that's kind of how it's framed. When in fact, that consensual conversation can be so intimate, but telling people about it is really hard. Showing them is really easy, right? Mm-hmm. So season 1 covered how do you talk about the need to put on a condom in the first sexual encounter with someone? How do you find consent inside a lasting relationship? How do you bring up the desire to watch porn with your partner? And how do teenagers, for example, negotiate even intimating that they might want to be intimate? Right? And the thing that I think is the most challenging in the consent conversation is that we're all taught that men are taught that sex makes them valuable. Like the more sex they have, the more valuable they are. And women are taught that they have to be very careful with whom they consent.
Yes.
This is a powder keg of a situation, right? And so when you start to actually open up and talk about it, there's a chance for rejection. And we're all taught that rejection is anathema to, like, there is tantamount to death.
Yes.
Right? And God forbid we get rejected. But actually, if you can move through the awkward moment of opening up to talk about it, it becomes really funny and really sweet. And that's what it seemed like everybody was responding to in season 1. So season 2 folds together. It's a sexy situation. It's navigating consent, and we all get to see that beautiful, delicious, slightly awkward moment that everybody survives. Does that make sense?
As someone who has been rejected many times, I am still here to do this interview, much to their dismay.
I mean, we all have, right?
Yeah.
There's levels of rejection. It doesn't necessarily mean you ask someone out and they flat out say no.
Yes, there's no, and then there's a restraining order.
Well, yeah.
And there's also the time where you like cozy up to your partner and you can just tell they're like not that into it, right? That's a level of rejection.
Yeah.
And the question is, do you devolve into a cycle of shame and resentment, or do you say, hey, like, are you not into it tonight?
No.
And that would be totally fine. I just want to like know where we are.
Well, whereas more men have been taught, nibble the neck, work the nipples a little bit, and then, try again in 5 minutes. It's just how it's...
I mean, literally, who's the guy who wrote the game? Not that I want to promote him, but there's a whole school of thought that you are supposed... that if you coerce a woman into a sexual act, that she will want to have sex with you.
Yes.
Which is insane.
Which I think that anyone up to a certain age looks at and goes, oh yeah, this he's got it through. And then once you hit a certain age or a certain level of maturity in your relationships, you go, wow, that is like borderline, like police should be called.
It's sexual assault, but it's also like, I hope that's what people of a certain age think. Unfortunately, like the majority, if you go up to somebody on the street and ask them what they know about consent or like how comfortable they are talking about sex with their partner,
right,
I would put money on the fact that like 90% of them would say not comfortable talking about it. My partner and I don't discuss pleasure and like what we don't like or when we want to have sex or not want to have sex.
Yep.
And that most of them would say like, well, what do you mean? What do I know about consent?
Can I tell you, actually, the way that this started for me was I was out at a bar with a friend, and we had a couple drinks, and so we got talking about, I think it actually started because we were talking about porn and how I know, like, a lot of my guy friends in their 30s have actually stopped watching porn because they started to feel like it was giving them an unhealthy relationship. And we got talking about porn and the notions of consent. And I said that when I was in my early 20s, I lived next door to this group of men who were in the kink community, and they were BDSM practitioners. And I, as a student of anthropology, I just wanted to know everything about like how they were like in it was a real community, and I wanted to know everything about it. So they gave me all these books, and I just tore through them. And while that's not my kink, though that kink is okay, I was fascinated to learn this concept from BDSM called negotiation. And that is two people, before they enter a scene, sit down together and talk about desires, needs, and boundaries. Mm-hmm. As a straight woman in whatever that was, 2006 or 7, I felt like I had been robbed my whole life of an opportunity to have just much healthier sexual relations because it was never expressed to me that it was okay to talk about sex. If you watch movies and TV or porn, people who meet for the first time magically fall into perfect, orgasmic, romantic sex.
Right.
That is a fucking lie. That is a total sham. And so we're taught that it's right if there's chemistry, and chemistry means you don't have to talk about it. So actually there is a reward for good sex that doesn't require any talking. Mm-hmm. And that means we're all trying to find that good sex that happens without talking, which means we're not talking. Right. It's terrible. And so when I said to my friend, I was telling him at the bar about this negotiation, he was like, yeah, but like, similar to what I just said, like talking about it spoils the mood. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how interesting. So I leaned in really close and I was like, are you telling me that if you were out to drinks with an attractive woman and she leaned in and told you all the sexy things that she would like you to do to her, that wouldn't be hot? And he immediately went, Oh, yeah, no, I get it. Totally. I totally get it. And that was when I was like, oh, you can't tell someone that negotiation is important or consent is important. You literally have to show them how it's better.
And that's a really good point too. And it's weird. Do you think that there is a that it's specifically in this country where there are a lot of people who come over, let's say from the more puritanical side of things, growing up over the years, that because we're taught to, and I think it's not just Puritans. I mean, I think it's a lot of like European, people who were uptight, let's say Catholic or religious people who came way over, and all of it happened. Do you think that that just genetically we're predisposed to just not want to talk about that, or do you think it's
socially? Yes, genetically, no.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah. We're completely. I mean, this country. It's so ironic that like the idea that sex sells and we watch and consume all of this sexualized media, and that girls are taught to be sexualized and boys are taught to like seek out sexual conquest, and yet we don't talk about sex at all, and that sex education is all but lost in this country.
Have you guys actually been, or girls? I always do that. I
totally fine.
We're fine.
I default. Dudes, guy. No. Have you been approached yet by sex ed teachers or schools or anything like that to make some of what you do part of their curriculum? So
we've actually we solicited and have been approached by a bunch of different partners. There are a lot of people out there working on different sides of this problem. Cindy Gallup of Make Love Not Porn, she has an incredible vision for the evolution of society that comes from much more freedom of sexual expression, greater ability to talk about it, greater ability to understand what real world sex is actually like. And so we're working with her. There are the folks at Yes to Sex who are doing a huge campus rollout program that is specifically targeting college campuses. Survivors Eradicating Rape Culture, we promote everything they do. There are some women who just started an incredible website called howtonotrape.com.
Oh my God, it's hilarious.
You think that would just be a thing that people would know? And I say people because not men rape, not just women rape, everyone rapes. Not everyone, but people have the ability to.
Yes.
Let's go.
We're with you.
We got
you. Got me.
Yeah.
They might not be with me.
Yeah.
But you would think that would be a common sense
situation. That is one
situation.
of the more bizarre aspects to this whole conversation, is that the surprising number of people who do not understand what it means to rape, and like the idea that they may have raped somebody and not even known that they did that, because that's how little we talk about consent. What has the general public's kind of response been to what you did? Now, obviously, you said you got picked up by a lot of media outlets, and you've been having more professional discussions with potential partners and stuff like that. But what has the general populace, so to speak, had to say about you guys and what you're putting out there? And has it all been positive? It's been like overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, I think the one pejorative comment on the first episode called Protection, in which Lauren stars, was that you don't see her tits.
Right.
That was the one.
But it's so funny because knowing YouTube and knowing how dark those comments can go, like we kept an eye on them.
That's pretty tame.
And that's super tame. I mean, there were like a couple here and there that we would just.
So our third episode deals with a lesbian couple. A lot of dark comments there, right? So it does also have to do, like, the first episode features two incredibly good-looking white people in a sexual situation that's familiar with a lot of people. It's very sexy. They're extremely believable in the whole thing. And that one garnered a ton of positive support. Interestingly enough, our third episode, which was with a lesbian couple, that suffered a much greater backlash, and the media outlets that picked it up were in Europe. And so we thought that was like interesting information, and the team members of the Fuck Yes creative team who are lesbians were like, oh yeah, by the way, guys, this is really normal. And it's so interesting because I think all of this sort of speaks to the greater conversation about feminism and intersectionality and women's ability to be on the internet in a safe way. as much as Lauren and I know, have been the victims of internet brutality in various ways, we got a window into what queer women face. And I realized, like, I have a certain amount of privilege in the way that I view my participation on the internet that they don't have. And that's been really important to us in understanding how to formulate the next season, because we want it to be even more inclusive than season one and include as many perspectives. And that means stories from all different kinds of people about all different kinds of couples. We're bringing in guest writers and guest directors. We're actually sourcing 5 of our stories from our community as part of our campaign.
Which, come on, that sounds kind of cool, actually. Like, if you have an interesting, I'm assuming, sexual encounter that you might want to see replayed.
Yeah.
Whether that was comfortable for you or not.
Totally. Like, especially uncomfortable. Those are the ones we never talk about, right? Like, the perfect ones are the ones that we do see when we see this stuff. But yes, if you have a story like that you would like to share and possibly see made into an episode, you can email us at fuckyesseries@gmail.com. There's no U in fuck. It's FCK. 100 words or less would be great. Yeah.
That's cool. I like that idea, and I like the idea of what you're saying about inclusion. I even I was wondering whether or not the right word on this one would be diversity or inclusion. I think inclusion is actually a much more correct word in this particular case. Are you having people who are either writing or starring in these episodes? Are they are they people who are from the, let's say the queer community, gay, lesbian, let's say black, white, Asian, whatever? Are you, how, even behind the scenes, how inclusive are you deliberately trying to be?
Yes. Very deliberate.
Is the answer.
Yeah.
I figured.
Yeah.
Yes,
thanks for boiling my long question down to a short answer.
Like,
you said it all.
Even within our group of creatives, right, we're not entirely, but mostly white and mostly straight. And so it is, like, we had one lesbian episode in the last season, and I think we want to do more along that front, and as well as, like, exploring what trans relationships are like, and that it's not just black and white, that there is a huge diversity of relationships and people who experience all of these.
And I think even within the United States, we have different cultural experiences, right? So I was raised secularly, right? I didn't have a religious or abstinence-only education handed down to me. And so it depends on, where you're from geographically. It depends on what communities you come from. Immigrant communities have different relationships to these kinds of conversations. Fascinatingly, like, probably half of our viewership on YouTube is from India.
Really?
Yeah. And so I'm really also interested in the ways in which this kind of media and its ability to get out into the world really transcends cultural borders. But that makes it even more important for us to make sure that we are not participating in making white standard, making cisgender standard, making straight standard. And our first season certainly doesn't do that. But we have to really persist with that intention, because the industry at large will default to it, or if you're Tim Burton, you'll defend it.
Saw that.
Bummer. And I think when it comes to sex, because everybody has it, you really have to be inclusive if you want to educate. It's really important for people to be able to see themselves inside these conversations.
Well, I think it's the only way people get comfortable with that, because, I was raised very liberally. My wife, not so much. So having conversations with her, I have no problem, speaking my mind on one thing or another. She, on the other hand, is just like, nope, shut it down, nope, and it can. I think it can be difficult to kind of get around that, and you guys are, kind of broaching that chasm of, being able to be like, okay, well, maybe you don't want to talk to me. Why don't you watch this, though?
Yeah, so my favorite thing that happened when we launched the first season was a mentor of mine came to me and said, do you think this would be okay for me to share with my 11-year-old daughter? Not to watch it with her, because they are sexual situations, but to let her watch it and then have that as an opening for a conversation. And I was like, man, if that happened even a few hundred times across the country, I would feel like we were hugely successful.
Yeah.
If this was a chance for a dad to feel like he could open up a healthy conversation about sex with his daughter, incredible, like major advancements, you know? And so that's ultimately what we hope to do, is open up conversations between and among couples, inside families, inside peer groups, certainly on college campuses and in high schools, everywhere where it's still hard to talk about sex.
Yeah.
Which is everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about a little more nuts and bolts of the campaign itself. How much longer does the campaign have to run? And I say that knowing that I'm hopefully going to have this edited and posted within the next day or so.
Great.
And so a little bit longer of how much longer you have, and then also kind of what are some of the expectations that people who are either giving to the project or what are they in for when they are looking at this campaign?
Well, we have just about a week left. If you post this on Wednesday, today's Tuesday, it'll end the following Wednesday. We're super proud of our campaign perks, as it were, which include everything from donating the entire series to a university of your choice, cool things like t-shirts and custom condoms, a book written by a friend of ours, Jessica Graham, on good sex and how to use mindfulness in sex. For this week only, which you guys will have about 3 days left of that, our producer, Elizabeth, who has one of the sexiest voices you've ever heard,
Holy God,
will record a personalized voicemail for you on your phone. So
I saw it. It was hot.
That's pretty legit.
Taking
reason
a
to
cue
chime
from
in.
Wait, Don't Tell Me.
There's also Cindy Gallup, who has pitched in for our campaign, and
so videos on Make Love Not Porn, subscription to Crash Pad series, which is a feminist queer porn site. I think you mentioned all the other ones.
Yeah.
You could become the executive producer of an entire episode if you wanted to.
That's an
have
option.
your name at the head of the
Get some credits.
episode.
Oh, there's also some custom art.
Oh, that's right. Jeanette Jetrust, who is just an absolutely incredible illustrator. She's making a custom sexy art piece for us, and you can get a limited edition print.
And of course, the higher level that you contribute, the more of all of those things that you get. So you could leave this scenario with an episode that you executive produced,
sweatshirts, condoms,
subscriptions,
art,
all the things.
You got it.
Yeah, pretty. That sounds like you're basically setting up both yourself and your pad for a really sexy date night filled with tons of consent.
Yeah,
and then
consent, information.
Exactly.
Conversation.
You're set.
Yeah.
It is. We should call it the Weekend In package.
Yeah. Spark and chill.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Seed and Spark and Chill is my greatest aspiration.
Yeah.
So and I want to know a little bit more. What makes, and I asked this because my wife literally asked me last night, what is the difference between Seed and Spark and other crowdfunding platforms?
Super simple. We're more like a studio, a crowd-powered film studio. So you at Seed and Spark can gather funding, you grow your audience, you get a lot of transparent data about that audience that helps you make really smart strategic distribution decisions, which we can then help you implement. We have a streaming platform of our own that is subscription, and we also distribute out into 100 million homes across, iTunes and cable VOD, all the digital platforms you can think of. You can subscribe to Seed and Spark as an audience member. We call it the executive producer subscription. And for $10 a month, you can stream everything on Seed and Spark, including season 1 and soon to be season 2 of Fuck Yes. And you get to allocate half of your monthly subscription to a new crowdfunding project of your choice. So every month we'll hit you up and say, hey, Nick, based on what you've watched, we think these are 3 crowdfunding projects you might be excited about. And you pick which one your money goes to. And so subscribing to Seed and Spark helps actually build a sustainable future for independent film. Filmmakers can then use our platform to build their careers inside the system, where we're just a super thin line between you and the audience that you're building, with all the tools you need to interact and monetize that relationship in between.
That is fantastic.
Thanks.
I wish I had a follow-up question. It's such a good answer. I like the idea of being able to subscribe to the platform and being able to kind of, in a way, lord over, no, I will give my money to you. You are worthy.
You can also give extra money to
you can give extra money, too.
I think what's really interesting about where we are now is our viewing habits have totally changed. And the way that we get recommendations have totally changed. We're not looking in the newspaper necessarily for the review and then looking in that same newspaper for the movie showing times. We don't get out our TV guide anymore and look up what time a show starts. It's a totally different ballgame. And people have gotten, because of social media, extremely savvy about how they get their recommendations. And oftentimes it's through social recommendations, through friends, or through a source that they come to trust. And Seed and Spark is really interested in building a brand that helps filmmakers and audiences leverage this kind of new way of coming to work, where audiences really want to have a say in what's coming down the pipeline. They don't just like to be talked at anymore. They're participants. And creators of all kinds really want to interact with their audiences because actually it makes better content all around. I hate the word content. Nobody really likes good content. It makes better movies and shows, narratives and features, documentaries and shorts and web series, or as my friend Hannah calls them, internet odysseys.
Internet odyssey.
I know, it's so delicious. The real advantage inside the system is that everybody has a choice and everybody has a voice.
Everyone has a choice. Everyone has a voice.
I just came up with that right now.
Yeah.
Especially this November.
Yeah, especially this November.
Choice, voice. I think, first of all, you just found your next, newsletter headline.
Thank
I think
you.
that's fantastic. I think that's a thing you got going on. What is it about? What is it about having that audience peek behind the scenes that people really seem to gravitate to, especially when it comes to crowdfunding, things with Seed and Spark, things with being able to see what you guys are doing with your series? Like, what is it about the almost, I'm going to hesitate to use the word, voyeuristic view that people have of their involvement with these things that people are trying to create, instead of just waiting for the finished product and being surprised or being yes, take all of that and make it funny.
So I would say that except if you live in Los Angeles and therefore are connected to the business no matter what. For the vast majority of people, they don't have a connection to what it's like to make a movie or a show. There are elements of it that are cool, interesting, funny, exciting. But more importantly, every creator is really developing a brand which is telling stories through their optic and through their worldview. And I think increasingly, audiences are interested in empowering certain creators who wouldn't otherwise get their worldview expressed because those audiences haven't been able to see themselves on the screen. So if you really pay attention to the stuff that gets greenlit through crowdfunding, it is not your average Hollywood rom-com, because actually nobody cares enough about it to get involved ahead of time. What gets greenlit instead are shows like Money and Violence, which is a series created by these guys who grew up in Brooklyn who felt like nobody was telling their story about the struggle between morality and survival from their perspective. And it was a massive, massive success because people and I saw the data, right? In Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Gary, Indiana, and New York, and Los Angeles, and every major city and some cities that maybe you and I on the coast don't think about that much, felt like an element of their experience was being expressed. And therefore, they showed up often $5 at a time to empower the second season. And that got picked up by Lionsgate and is now getting developed for a much bigger production. And what's important about that is that it's simply the facility for people to be able to empower the creators who are trying to put their voices on screen.
It sounds like, regardless if you're talking about sex, if you're talking about things like gang violence, race, anything of like that, it seems like the topic of inclusion is really and the idea of being able to have a voice on the screen that is yours seems to really be a common thread to a lot of the campaigns that are successful.
That's right.
Number one, and number two, that people want to see afterwards. So, what are your plans? Are your plans to do a season 3 of this based on the success of Fuck Yes season 2, or
I can do this forever.
I mean, we could do it for there's like an endless listen to just simply based on everything that we've brought up in this short span of time. Like literally, this series could go on forever. Mm-hmm. There is no dearth of content or fodder for episodes.
Yeah.
Rather.
Well, and frankly, like, there's a lot of things people might get tired of watching. As far as we can tell, they don't get tired of watching sex.
No.
Right? And so if we can create really sexy, watchable stuff that is enticing and inclusive and also educational, I think we could do this for a while. I mean, it's on us to make season 2 as good as season 1, but that's why I said we put a dream team together.
Yes. Yeah, and it is a fantastic team. And is there anyone else in the team that you haven't shouted out yet?
I don't think we've shouted out anyone.
Let's shout out the team.
Let's shout them out.
The dream team.
Erica Anderson, Eve Cohen, Julie Keck, Jessica King, Blessing Yen,
And Elizabeth
Altman.
And the two of us. So just some of their credits. Elizabeth Altman is herself a consent educator, a brilliant producer. She just produced the first season of Ordinary Women, which is Anita Sarkeesian Feminist Frequency's newest digital series, which is really incredible. She's also the founder of RapeJoke.com. Julie and Jessica are partners in Work and Life.
Oh, I know Julie and Jessica.
Yeah, they've made incredible series.
Yes. They used to write for FilmSnobbery.
Yeah,
they did. They did a column called Peep Show based on the intersection of the porn industry and indie film marketing.
So you know everything about them. And they used to make Kinky Cuties. So this is sort of following in the vein of stuff they already made. Blessing Yen is the Chief Creative Officer at Seed and Spark. She is the Creative Director of Bright Ideas Magazine. She is teaching UI and UX design at USC this fall. She is a creator of some award-winning VR pieces called The Visitor. She was a producer on a piece called Hard World for Small Things. She's made another piece that was featured in the New Yorker called Memory Slave. She's one of the most creative powerhouse people I've ever met in my life. Erica Anderson runs education and crowdfunding at Seed and Spark. Eve Cohen is a director of photography all over the place, and we're just very lucky to have her. I've worked with her on basically everything I've ever done.
It seems like you guys got a lot of your crew from the people at Seed and Spark. Is that an accident, or they just see what you guys were trying to accomplish and go like, yeah, we're in. You don't even have to say anymore. We're in, and you don't even have to pay us. And you're like, thank God we don't have to do that.
So not really.
I mean, Seed and Spark is almost entirely for filmmakers by filmmakers as it is, but it also happens that we all tend to work on each other's creative projects outside of work.
That's great, though. It sounds like, regardless of whether it's Seed and Spark or outside of Seed and Spark, your vision is kind of aligned. So it sounds like, from a working perspective, it must be somewhat of a smooth environment to work in, because one hand knows what the other hand's doing, or at the very least there's some anticipation of what the next step might be.
Well, and I think Lauren and I finally met, even though we had basically all of the same friends. Literally, when we finally friended each other on Facebook, there were like 200 and some odd common friends. People started to think we were the same person, and because you never saw us in the same place together.
We're not.
We're not.
Not
Look
a hologram.
Yeah. This is all CGI. This right here, CGI. Yes.
Lauren and I met, I think, when I became a guest on Chicks Who Script podcast.
No. We met before that.
When did we meet?
Did we meet at like a party or something?
Well, probably. But it was Seed and Spark that facilitated certainly my meeting all of these incredible women. Even Erica and I have been working together for a really long time. So it's certainly the nexus. But I mean, it was it was Lauren's work on her upcoming project called Bang Bang Girls. I read that script, and when we thought about Consent is Sexy, she was the first call I made. So a lot of this is that it is aligned in all of our work, and that's why there's sort of a seamless between between what Lauren's doing and what we're doing at Seed and Spark. It is about honestly, like, making the world a little bit better.
Yeah.
One movie or show at a time. And I know that sometimes that sounds silly when there are so many large projects to work on, but if you think about the profound message it sends when people can see their own story on screen, that it's worth the size of this really beautiful screen, that makes a big difference. And, there's a national screen that we could give to little girls everywhere on November 8th, if you were so inclined. So if you care about things like sexual health and women's
eradicating
rights,
rape culture,
there's
to reproductive health.
Really cool choice you could make on November 8th that would make it really easy for you. And there's a video about it on our YouTube channel, the Fuck Yes YouTube channel. That's no you, FCK. Yes. On our crowdfunding page, on our Facebook page. And if you could share it in battleground states, because Facebook won't allow us to promote something called Fuck Yes, that would be really awesome.
Yeah.
Even though there's an asterisk
Yeah.
where there would be a U, but
Which is amazing considering how often I tell people to fuck off,
Yeah.
etc. on
Sure,
Facebook.
or how often like some terribly violent video just shows up in your feed.
Well, and that's the culture we live in, where
Yeah.
violence totally fine. Show all of it you want. Sex, if
Only if it's selling something.
Only if we're selling something. And typically only if the man is getting some sort of gratification out of it.
Oh yeah, the MPAA. We could do a whole series on that.
A
also.
whole series on that. Yeah, and there's a what's this movie's? Not,
this movie is not yet rated.
rated.
About
Is
how
it-
the MPAA rates films differently based on whether the woman is receiving
Or-
pleasure or whether it's the man, and how their ratings are drastically different.
Fantastic movie to watch. I mean, literally, they get down to the nitty gritty of he humped her 3 times. Let's knock it down to 2, and that's the difference between your X-rated or NC-17 or your rated R.
Because they think it has to do with family values, because women aren't allowed to experience any kind of orgasm, which, by the way, all of the lack of sexual education and health conversation in this country has led multiple generations of women think that they don't deserve that.
Imagine my surprise when they do. No, I want to thank you guys for taking some time and talking with us. I know that for the audience, I'm hoping that they enjoyed it and weren't just like, this is creepy, or
Not
weird.
creepy.
It's not.
Sex is like somebody had sex so that you could be here. You've probably had sex. Sex is great. Like, this shouldn't be that awkward.
And you know
shouldn't
what?
be
It's
that
actually
awkward.
really fun to talk about. Because
Yeah.
basically, since starting Fuck Yes, we talk about sex all
Every
the
day.
time with people we've just met.
Yes.
And you know what? It's not that bad.
No.
In fact, we think it makes everything a little more fun.
A little bit more fun and a little bit more casual and comfortable.
Yeah.
Because after a while, once you got to breach the subject, you got to get over the hump, the awkward hump, as it were. You know, that first awkward hump which
Yes.
we've all had. So I want to thank you both for sitting down, and I hope everyone else enjoyed it. And
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is great.